So if you go out and you see someone that starts talking and every time they talk, some jewels come out, would you notice it? Probably yes. So you're likely to remember it because it's one of those things that you go and tell your friends, you know what I saw that person. And that is what you will retain.
Welcome to the Lifestyle First podcast, discussing lifestyle medicine and making self-care as easy as 1, 2, 3. And now your host, lifestyle medicine physician and coach, Dr. Alka Patel.
Hi, hey, and hello, and welcome to Series 10, Episode 8 of the Lifestyle First podcast. So this week we are discussing L for learning habits. And the one question we're exploring is what habits can boost your memory? So to help answer that, I have with me the wonderful Giulia Remondino. Giulia is the founder of Ingeniously after she trained in Italy, and she moved to London, since which she's authored a book called Genius by Choice. And she's been a TEDx speaker as well with her talk, Alter Your Past, Replay Your Future. And she's actually trained thousands and thousands of individuals and several companies on mastering the art of learning. So welcome, Giulia. I am so looking forward to today's conversation.
Hello, thank you so much for having me here.
You're very, very welcome. So look, let's start talking about learning. Now, we learn so much in our lifetimes, don't we? And I think even if you go back to learning at school or at university, we're taught a lot about what to learn, but we're really not taught how to learn at all. I mean, I certainly remember a few study skills sessions that I had at school, and most of those are about how to create a mind map and nothing else. And so no one really teaches us how to learn. So do you think learning is a skill that you can learn?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think that definitely yes. So it's true that the school system, for how it's structured, and also, I mean, the necessities of the school system is more focused on what we have to learn rather than how we should tackle it and how we should learn it. But it is so important to realize that we can learn how to learn. Learning is a skill, and as any skill, it can be mastered, it can be learned. And it is important to do so because it's one of those skills that really define also the beliefs that we have about ourselves and how we feel in the moment in which we have a goal. Because if you think about it, every goal we have requires us to learn something that we don't know yet. Otherwise, it wouldn't just be a goal, it would be a task that you tick off and that's it. So learning is just pervasive, it's everywhere. And when we feel confident in our abilities to learn, then we also feel confident in facing the goals that we have for ourselves. So it is important and it can definitely be learned.
Oh, I love that, because I think that connection between learning and confidence is so important, isn't it? And we don't often make that connection, but by learning something, it gives you the confidence to then utilize it. But there's probably my second point. I think certainly for me, one of my biggest frustrations is when I've read something that I'm so fascinated by, I'm really immersed into it, I'm feeling that I'm learning it. And then 3 days later, I just cannot recall what I've learned at all. It's a huge frustration. So what's the difference between learning something and then being able to put it into that memory bank so that you can recall it whenever you need it?
Yeah, so good news is you're not alone. That's something that happens to most people, but it actually happens because our brain is wired to select what we actually need to retain and just keep remembering it over time, and what instead we don't need and we need to let go. However, at times we don't really know how to tell our brain, listen, this thing, I really want to know it. This one, let it go. And so we confuse the two a bit. And so it's important to understand how to retain it. And a lot of it is due to our ability to really create mental representations for what we are learning. So there are people that at times read and they understand it and they feel they understand things, but then given that they don't have a strong mental representation, so they haven't yet developed the ability to turn what they are understanding into the language of our brain, which is a language that's based on images, then what happens that over time that thing disappears, or it's still there, but they don't know where to find it. A bit like, when you you know that you know the name of someone, but then you just can't recall it. And then maybe some days later you're showering and it's like, oh, I remember the name, so it's still there, but it's like if we didn't know where to find it. The example that I use at the time is the example of a dictionary. So if I give a dictionary to look for the word table, let's say, you go to letter T and you find table, easy. But if I take the dictionary and I shake it all with all the words that get mixed up, then at that point, it's not easy at all. So you know that the word table is in there, but you need to leaf through all the pages in order to find it. And it's very unlikely that you will. So it's about having a system for us to store the information. Because our memory has 3 phases. There is the encoding phase, the storage phase, and the retrieval phase. So we encode information, then we choose whether to store it or not. And if we want to store it, we need to store it effectively. Because imagine if, let's say, you are moving in and you don't have any furniture yet, and you start buying clothes and a lot of clothes, but you don't know where to put them. The day in which you want to find that skirt that you bought that you really, really want to wear today, you just can't find it. Well, if you have a system and you know where skirts are and you know where forks are or where toiletries are, then it's easy for you to go and retrieve the information that you want. Same thing in our brain. So having a system is what helps us.
Okay, so that's really, really useful to know. Just to go back to something you said right at the beginning about creating images. And that's the way we process information, is by creating those visual images. I mean, certainly a lot of people will have heard of these inventories in terms of how you learn. Are you visual, auditory, or kinesthetic? So from what you're saying, we all got a basic foundation of being visual in terms of our memory and learning. Is that right?
Yes. So it's very interesting that you mentioned this topic, because it's something that a lot of people may have heard of a bit, but at times we don't really know how to put in practice. So the distinction between visual, auditory, and kinesthetic can be extremely helpful when we have one of those styles that's really our preferred style, and so the one that we go for the most. But we need to remember that the way we filter the reality in general, for most of us, includes all the 3 senses. I mean, it's more than 5, but kinesthetic includes some of them together. So what happens that we do see things, we hear things, that we feel, we move. So we all have all those styles. Yeah. It's just that when we understand which one we prefer, maybe we can use it a bit more. But all of us will see images, all of us will hear sounds, all of us will feel emotions or touch, taste, and so on. So we can't exclude one just because it's not our preferred one, because we're missing out on really the full power of our brain in that way.
Okay. That's a really useful distinction. So tell us a little bit more about these memory triggers then. So how do we create this system for our memory?
Sure. So we need to remember that our memory has a few characteristics, right? So on one side, it's visual, as we said. So turning things into images makes it so much easier to remember. So for example, imagine if I asked you to, if I say the word maybe Tower Bridge. For most people, what will come to mind is not the writing Tower Bridge, but it's the image of Tower Bridge. Second thing is, imagine the second characteristic is that it is associative. So it works like a chain. What does it mean? That if you pull one ring of the chain, all the others will come along. Mm-hmm. So imagine that you are working, there's a radio on, and at a certain point you hear the song of your first love. So what happens immediately, that your mind goes back to that time of your life and what happened. And some people are happy, some people are sad, some people are angry. It will depend, but for sure, it's like if that song triggered a series of other information that you have associated to that trigger. So it's everything is connected. Every new memory that we create needs to be connected to something that we already know. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard to find it. It will be like floating there, but we don't know where to find it. Mm-hmm. And this is something that happens, for example, at times people try to remember your name. And so they want to really remember your name is Alka. And they will be like, okay, Alka, Alka, Alka. And they start repeating it. But if they don't create a trigger for coming up with Alka next time, They will have the name Alka, but they won't be able to associate it to who was it, whose name was Alka, especially when you maybe meet a lot of people. So we always need to have the trigger and the new information. And the third characteristic is that our memory is based on emotions. So when there is an emotion involved, it's easier to remember things. If you think about maybe doing something like maybe your favorite holiday that you've been to, maybe it happened years and years ago, but you still remember a lot of things about it because there was an emotion involved. Well, maybe you've read an article just today and you can't even recall it because there was less engagement, less emotion. And there are 4 kinds of emotions that really, really help us to remember. And it is when something is funny. So when we laugh, when thinking about that thing, or when something is violent, scary, so that we the emotion that's associated to it is usually a bit of fear, or when something is romantic / sexual. So that's another emotion and feeling that through evolution, we have had to really remember how to recognize and retain. And the 4th one is when something is disgusting. And again, for survival reasons, we really remembered what was disgusting and what wasn't good for us in that sense. So when something is like disgusting, we are more likely to remember it. So how can we put all of this together? If I know that I want to remember something, I will need, first of all, to make sure that I turn it into an image. So it's not just an abstract concept there, but I need to see it somehow. Then I need to start from the trigger. So I need to know, okay, what is this information for? So what is the drawer that I want to open to retain this information and recall it? And then I need to find a way to have a bit of emotion, make it funny, for example, so that when I think about it, I remember the emotion, I remember the information, and I have what I need to have in that moment.
Great. Gosh, there's so much there, isn't there? But actually, you really managed to sort of simplify it into these 3 very clear boxes. And I think the next bit is, well, actually, how do you attach that emotion? How do you create an emotion? When, if you're reading a piece of text, for example, I certainly am going back to my medical school days when the volume of learning was just intense. And I wasn't necessarily creating an emotional connection to what I was learning, apart from I've just got to get through this. So what's the technique or tip for how do you create an emotion with something that you're reading in order to remember it?
And very often, unfortunately, the emotion that we feel is like boredom, frustration. So those don't help much. But the powerful thing that we have as human beings is imagination. So when we start unleashing the power of imagination, we can connect to those emotions and we can build those emotions. Because if we think about so if you want to memorize my name, my name is Giulia, let's say. So what would you do? First of all, you need to start from my face. Okay, so that you remember that's your trigger. When you see me next time, you know that my name is Giulia. Now, Giulia, we need to turn it into an image. So you can use, for example, another Giulia that you know, or you can use something that sounds like Giulia. So at times people may use, I don't know, Julia Roberts, let's say, to say a famous one, or Giulia as an object. At times people use a jewel. So something that triggers you that the name was Giulia. Mm. And then at that point, we need to create emotion, which is your question. So for example, you start from me and you find a detail in my face that sticks. It could be my nose, my mouth, my eyes, whatever you want to start from. And you take the second image, which we could use a jewel, for example. How can we make it funny? Mm-hmm. So, for example, I don't know, like I start talking with my Italian accent and a lot of jewels come out of my mouth, for example, okay? Or if you saw that in a crowd, you would notice it, right? So the question that I usually ask myself to make sure that the emotion is created is like, would you notice it if it was in a crowd? So if you go out and you see someone that starts talking and every time they talk, some jewels come out, would you notice it? Probably yes. So you're likely to remember it because it's one of those things that you go and tell your friends, you know what I saw that person. And that is what you will retain. So creating an emotion through your imagination also makes it more fun. Also when it's medicine or when it's very technical texts and so on, then just one thing to be precise, memory that we're focusing on today is one aspect of learning. Of course, it will be easier to remember things if the aspects that come before, the steps that come before, have been done properly, like processing the information, reading effectively, priming your mind for learning, and so on. But it is a fundamental one. So I just wanted to mention it, but using the emotion like this, I would say.
I totally love that, because now, of course, no one is going to forget your name, are they? Thank you so much for that.
Don't be disappointed when it happens that I talk with you, but there's no Jules.
Love that. So again, I keep going back to this voluminous learning that we do through our lifetime. And I certainly remember there were times when I was at medical school and doing my finals, and my mum reminds me of this fairly frequently when I would phone her. And of course, at the time when I was at med school, we didn't have mobile phones, we didn't have FaceTime. To go downstairs and the whole line of phones and dial my mum, and in front of everybody, I would be breaking down and saying, I can't remember anymore. My memory is full. Nothing is going in. So there's a question. Can your memory get full? A bit like, computer and disks and all of this. Can your memory get full?
So that's an amazing question, because at times people come to me, it's like, I just feel overwhelmed. I can't bring anything in anymore. Now, the good news is that our brain, if it can be full, it can be filled up. I mean, I don't think we'll ever be able to do it, because the capacity of our brain is huge. We can link in an article that is very interesting, if it's possible, in the caption, where it shows how big our brain is, how many connections it can make. So it's impossible to fill it. When we have that sense of, okay, nothing can come in anymore, it's because it's not stored effectively. I don't know if you've ever moved out from somewhere, and it's incredible when you look at it and say, wait, until yesterday, all this thing was just stored. Where was it? Now it's like full of boxes everywhere. It's a mess. I can't even walk. Because when we store things effectively, they take less space. And so with our brain, it's a similar process, of course, not with actual boxes inside our brain, but like a similar process. When it's stored effectively, it doesn't give us the sense of overwhelm that we may feel instead when we don't have a real system to put it in. And so we feel that, okay, nothing else can come. When that moment arrives, though, and at times when we're having strong sessions of learning, it may happen, it's important to remember the importance of breaks. So at times people just study for hours and hours and hours and hours, and then they get to a certain point and they can't do it anymore. But if we start having breaks, and based on your attention span, on how hard it is for you to tackle the topic, how much you slept, so there's a lot of factors that affect it, but you can have a check after half an hour and see, okay, am I still fresh or not? If I'm not fresh, you can have a break. If you're fresh, you can keep going. After 1 hour, another check, 1 hour and a half, a third check, but don't go beyond 1.5 hours. Because when you go beyond, even though you feel you can, you are basically exhausting all your energy way before you could. If you respect yourself by having breaks after maximum 90 minutes, but less would be better, then what happens that it's more sustainable. It's like you create a rhythm that allows your brain to switch off and then be ready, switch off and be ready.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for highlighting that 90-minute cycle. And I think it pervades in so much of what goes on in our minds and in our bodies. Our sleep cycles, for example, work on an average of 90-minute cycles. Our memory cycles, our learning cycles seem to be following that. So there's something there. Whilst there might not be that single magic number, that's the one to aim for, isn't it, really, with a little range around that. And so that's really important. And just tapping into what you're talking about in terms of habits, and we're talking about habits for a good memory today, is certainly breaks is an important habit to develop. Sleep as well. Let's just touch on sleep a little bit. So my son at the moment is studying for his finals, and my words to him are always, you have to prioritize sleep, because that is when this immediate short-term memory processing is going to be going into that long-term memory bank. So tell us a little bit about that, the link between sleep and memory.
Of course. So sleep is fundamental for memory, okay, in a lot of different ways, because on one side, of course, we can all understand that if we haven't slept it's just harder to be lucid and to put things in. And that's one way to remember, okay, sleep. If you're struggling, just sleep. But the other side of it is really due to what happens when we sleep in our memory. So I don't know if you've seen the movie Inside Out, the cartoon with all the, the emotions that play out in our brain. And there's a nice scene there that helps us to understand this concept, where overnight there's this big storage room and there's a cleaner that selects all the memories and thinks, okay, shall I keep this one? Does this person still need it? If the answer is yes, they keep it and put it back. If the answer is no, they throw it away. Mm-hmm. And overnight, it's a bit like if that process was happening inside our brain. And also our brain manages to connect all the images and feelings and experiences that happened throughout the day. So for example, one very good strategy in terms of memory specifically is revise something right before going to bed, because overnight your mind will put it together and will connect it with your previous knowledge, will add some ideas. Or if you are struggling with creativity or understanding certain concepts, have a small nap, because in that moment of diffuse attention in which we are not completely focused on something, but we're not deeply asleep, what happens is that, again, our mind works its magic. It's incredibly powerful. So we allow it to work its magic and go back on track and understand more, find more solutions, remember more, and so on.
Yeah, and there's 100% something there, isn't there? I mean, I even from a practical angle, I do a lot of professional public speaking, and what I've found very recently is if I'm thinking about what I'm saying before I go off to sleep, somehow it just feels as though it's embedded, and it feels so much more effortless than the constant pouring over it in the daytime. So that's a really important association, I think, is that immediacy before sort of sleeping and that period whilst you're sleeping and what's happening there. So yeah, thank you for highlighting that as well.
And now here is your lifestyle first prescription, your 3 activating actions to take you from knowing to doing.
So shall we try now and really summarize everything that you've shared with us? Your book is incredible. By the way, I've got it here in front of me, and there's just so much in there, so many techniques and a real library full of things that are very, very effective. But in terms of what we've been talking about today, give us 3 takeaways, 3 very key actions that we can go away with immediately and really start enjoying the memory that we're building.
Absolutely. So I'll try to summarize them in 3. So one side, we have to develop the habit of turning what is happening around us, concepts, details, into images. So really asking ourselves to picture things, because that's one of the aspects that a lot of people struggle with when they have problems with memory. And the second thing that I would suggest is to really remember the checklist. So add that emotional aspect, add that fun side, or make it a bit disgusting, or make it a bit scary, but do something that allows your mind to know, oh, wow, this matters. I would tell it to a friend. I would, share it with others if I saw it somewhere. And the third thing is always remember to start from a trigger. So don't just put information randomly in your living room, but create a drawer for it. So if I want to remember Alka, start from your face, for example, or from what you represent for me, in order for me to remember your name.
Yeah, perfect. So thinking in images, remember your triggers, and create that checklist that you've been through. Wonderful. I think those are 3 really key things that will just get us going. So thank you so much for that. I'm sure after listening today, people are going to want even more tools and techniques and find out much more about what you do. So tell me, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
So there's our website, which is ingeniously.com, where you can get in touch and see a bit more about what we do, or you can follow me on Instagram with my name and last name, Giulia Remondino, and get in touch and just ask questions, and I will be super happy to help. We also run some free sessions that you can attend to learn more and understand more how to master any skills. So if you're interested, just reach out and I'll direct you to the best free session for you.
Wonderful. And I've taken part in some of your sessions and really fascinated about learning long lists of numbers effortlessly. So there's something to be done there as well. So I definitely encourage everyone listening to check out Giulia in more detail and get her book, Genius by Choice, and certainly have a look at more of her work as well. So wonderful. Thank you so much, Giulia, for joining me today. And now that simply leaves me to wish everyone listening a happy, healthy day.
Thanks for joining us on the Lifestyle First podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and share. To learn more, please visit www.dralkapatel.com.